everybody, and welcome back to Think Outside the Box. A deep dive. Just a quick reminder, this deep dive is part of Teacher Victoria's awesome ESL class. So be sure to drop her a message and let her know what you think about today's topic,
Absolutely.
which is, does absence really make the heart grow fonder?
Ooh,
Or is that just something people say
that's a good one.
to kind of like sugarcoat the challenges of long-distance relationships, you know? We've all heard that saying,
Yeah.
but like, is it actually true? We're going to deep dive into that today.
I think it's one of those things that people say,
Yeah.
and it's easy to say.
Right.
But then when you're actually in it,
Yeah,
it's a lot more complicated.
it's way more complicated. And the source material we're looking at today hints at the fact that, like, yeah, long-distance relationships can work,
Yeah,
but there are some conditions
Yeah.
that need to be met in order to make it work.
there are definitely some.
So we're going to unpack that today.
Yeah, some challenges for sure.
Yeah. So starting right off the bat, one of the things that the source material touches on
Yeah.
is this idea that, like, okay, yeah, absences can make the heart grow fonder,
Yeah.
but like the lack of physical presence
Yeah.
is a big deal.
It's a huge hurdle to overcome.
It's a huge hurdle,
Yeah.
right? And how do we overcome that? I mean, I'm just thinking about it right now. Like,
It's so basic.
it's such a basic human need to, like, want to be physically close to the people that we care about.
Right. And we take it for granted
Exactly.
when we're in close proximity relationships.
We take it for granted when we're
Yes.
physically together,
Yeah.
like when we're living in the same city or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking about this, like, let's say you had a really rough day at work,
Right.
and all you want to do is, like, come home and get a hug
Exactly.
from your significant other, your partner, whoever it is that you're in an LDR with, but they're, you know, hundreds or even thousands of miles away.
And you can't have that.
And you can't have that. So how do you deal with that?
How do you deal with those really difficult,
Well-
like those low points where you just need that support?
You need that physical touch.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the source material also goes on to talk about other kinds of strains that are very specific
Yeah.
to long-distance relationships.
Specific challenges.
Yeah, like time zone differences.
Yes.
Just even trying to coordinate schedules. Like,
Busy schedules.
yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Your partner might be 8, 9, 10 hours ahead of you or behind you.
Makes it hard to find time for each other.
Right, and how do you even maintain
Yeah, and to feel like
a sense of normalcy?
you're part of each other's everyday lives.
Exactly.
If your schedules are totally opposite.
And even, like, you know, the temptation of other relationships when you're physically separated for so long.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
I mean, the source material talked about that as well. And
Yeah.
it's, you know, it's not just about
Yeah.
being physically attracted to other people. It's just that
It's the proximity.
that need for connection.
Exactly.
And if you're not getting it from your partner, you're going to look for it elsewhere.
You're going to look for it elsewhere, yeah. So that really stood out to me, and I'm sure it stood out to a lot of you listening.
Yeah.
And one of the things that came up over and over again in the source material that I thought was really interesting was
Yeah.
the emphasis on communication
Absolutely.
as being, like, keyword.
Foundation.
Right.
Right.
But, and I think we all kind of know this intuitively, that, like, okay, if you're in a long-distance relationship, you got to communicate.
You got to talk.
But the source material was very clear that it's not just about frequency.
Yeah.
It's about quality.
Meaning,
They call it meaningful communication.
yes.
What does that even mean, though?
Well, you know, like,
What does that actually look like in practice?
think about it this way.
Yeah.
Instead of just like a quick, how was your day? It's more like,
Yeah.
okay, I had this really tough challenge at work today.
Yeah.
Can I talk to you about it and get your perspective?
Oh.
You know what I mean?
I see what you're saying.
It's like getting below the
It's
surface.
going deeper.
Yeah.
It's not just like surface level chit chat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You got to share your feelings openly.
Okay.
You got to talk about your goals and maybe even find ways to experience things together,
Oh.
even though you're apart.
Virtually, you mean?
Virtually, yeah.
Okay.
Like the source material is talking about watching movies at the same time.
Oh, yeah. They gave some cool examples for that, right? Like
Yeah.
watching movies together.
Yeah.
Playing online games together.
Right.
Even cooking a meal together while on a video call.
Like you're both in the kitchen
Yeah.
making the same meal.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a good point because it kind of goes back to what we were talking about before about how, like, in a normal geographically close relationship,
Yeah.
we take those little things for granted. Like,
You too.
you know, oh, we both had a long day. Let's just cook dinner together.
It-
You know, let's just watch a movie together and unwind. But when you're in an LDR,
Yeah.
you have to be a lot more intentional
Very intentional.
about those things.
You have to plan them.
And I just want to give another quick shout out to all of you listening in Teacher Victoria's ESL class.
Yeah.
Be sure to drop her a message if you have any questions or thoughts about
Mhm.
this deep dive.
Yes, definitely.
So continuing on this idea of communication and connection,
Yeah.
another thing that the source material highlighted
Yeah,
that I
it-
thought was really important
Absolutely.
was this idea of transparency.
Transparency. Yeah.
And I'm kind of curious to get your take on this. Like,
Sure.
what exactly do they mean by transparency?
Well, you know it's being open
Yeah.
and honest with your partner,
Yeah.
even when it's tough,
Even when it's difficult.
even when you're worried it might lead to a conflict.
Right.
Because you know when you're not physically together,
Yeah.
that trust becomes the foundation,
Okay.
the bedrock of the whole relationship.
I see what you're saying because
That makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Because like I was thinking, even in relationships where you are physically together,
Right.
you know, if there are secrets
Yeah.
or resentments or things that aren't being
It
said,
can build up.
they can just fester.
Yeah, fester is a good word.
But in a long distance relationship, it's like the stakes are
The stakes are so much higher.
so much higher.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you don't have that like daily interaction.
You're not seeing what your partner is doing. You're
Mhm.
not, a part of their everyday life.
So you really have to rely on
It's a trust.
that communication and that transparency.
100%.
Yeah. Okay.
And that actually leads perfectly
It's-
into the next point that the source material is making, which is
Yeah.
shared goals.
Shared goals.
Because when you and your partner have a clear vision for the future,
Okay.
whether it's eventually living in the same city,
Okay.
pursuing a career change together,
Right.
whatever it is,
Having a family.
having a family, whatever it is,
Okay.
that shared vision
That shared vision.
gives the distance a purpose.
Okay.
It makes it feel like you're working towards something
I like that.
together.
It's not just like an endless waiting game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a stepping stone
Okay.
to your future together.
Okay. So we've got communication, we've got transparency,
Yep.
we've got shared goals.
Shared goals.
Like that's a lot to manage.
it is.
And I'm kind of curious,
Yeah.
like with all of these extra challenges,
Yeah.
is it even realistic to expect LDRs to thrive?
Well, the source material actually says it is possible,
Okay.
but it takes work.
It takes effort.
Yeah. You have to be committed.
You have to be committed.
You have to be willing to adapt.
Okay.
And that's where personal growth comes in.
Oh, interesting.
One of the things the source material talked about
Yeah.
was this idea that the time apart in an LDR can actually be an incredible opportunity for individual growth.
Okay.
So you can pursue your own passions,
Yeah.
develop new skills,
Yeah.
basically become the best version of yourself.
So it's not just about waiting for your partner to come back.
Yeah.
It's about like using that time to also better yourself.
Exactly.
And then when you do reunite, you're bringing two
improved,
improved,
Yeah.
more well-rounded,
more well-rounded.
more mature
Smarter.
individuals to the relationship.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that reframing because I think so often we think about LDRs
Yeah.
as like this period of just waiting.
Just wait.
And like, oh, it's so hard.
It's so sad.
But if you can look at it as like an opportunity for growth,
Yes.
that's amazing.
It can be a really positive thing.
It can be a really positive thing. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't think about.
I agree.
So I'm glad that the source material brought that up.
And to be fair, the
Yeah.
source material also said not all LDRs succeed.
Of course not.
Right.
Right.
And they talked about,
That
talked
could be
about
reasons why. Yeah, like when the communication starts to weaken,
Yeah.
the trust erodes.
Yeah.
And when there's no clear vision for the future.
So it sounds like that shared vision
Yeah.
is really key.
Absolutely fundamental.
Yeah.
If you don't know where you're going together,
You're just drifting.
you're just drifting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when things can fall apart.
And the distance becomes too much.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. And before we wrap up, I just want to remind everybody who's listening in Teacher Victoria's ESL class,
Yes.
please let her know what you thought of today's deep dive.
She'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. Okay.
So what have we learned?
So what have we learned?
Long distance relationships.
Yeah.
They can work,
They can
but it takes more.
more than just love.
Yeah.
More than just the feeling of love.
You need communication on steroids.
Communication on steroids.
Radical transparency.
Radical transparency.
A rock solid plan.
A rock solid plan for the future.
For the future.
And a commitment to personal growth.
Exactly.
Oh.
That's a tall order.
It is a tall order, but I think it's also...
It's possible.
It is possible, yeah.
Yeah,
And I think it's also a really empowering way to think about it.
absolutely.
Because it means that, like, if you're willing to put in the work,
Yeah.
it can work.
Yeah, make it work.
So here's a final thought to chew on.
Okay.
And be sure to share your thoughts with Teacher Victoria on this.
I like it.
Does the idea of out of sight, out of mind have any merit?
Ooh. That's a good one.
If so, what does that say about the strength of the relationship?
Ooh, that's really interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's something to think about, and let Teacher Victoria know what you think about that as well.
Yes, definitely.
And that's a wrap for this week's Think Outside the Box. We'll catch you next time for another deep dive.
See you then.
Bye.